Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. If you have not joined us before, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations internationally to help them do one thing and one thing only: increase their sales with integrity. And if you have joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception, my friends. Hopefully there's more than one of you out there. Actually, I'm not sure that I have that many friends, but to anybody who might be watching, this gentleman is the founder of Bach Creative. He's a brand chef. We're going to find out about what a brand chef is, he helps people spice up their brand and turn under-seasoned, inconsistent brands into well-plated, I'm getting hungry, high-flavor brand systems that actually work. Please welcome Asaf Bochman. Good morning, Asaf.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm excited to hear all about your spicy ideas on how we can brand ourselves. Before we do, I just want to make a quick mention to anybody who is listening. We are almost at the end of April, and that means we're almost 1/3 of the way through the year. 1/3. Now, if you are not 1/3 of the way to hitting your financial goal for 2026, now, right this second, is the time to get busy. If you've been slacking off on your prospecting, if you're not doing enough conversational selling, if you're not closing enough deals, right this second is the time to get busy. Because if you call a guy like me in October or November and say, Jeff, I'm not going to hit my quota, what do? I'm going to say, you should have called me 6 months ago. So get busy now. And with that, Asaf, can you maybe give us the 2 to 3 minute version of your background? What turned you into the brand chef?
Absolutely. So I essentially was a designer by trade. I worked in a lot of different companies, learning a lot of different operations, customer service experience, design experience, and essentially opened up my own studio at the end of 2022 and have been operating it first as a side hustle, then as a full-time gig. And then essentially about a year and a half ago, I was working with another brand strategist of mine, shout out to Arthur Germain of Brand Telling. And he helped me basically figure out that I had no brand of my own, even though I was creating brands for other people and other companies. So together we sat, we figured out, food is such a huge part of my life, pre-marriage, post-marriage, with kids, and everything. And so we just had to bake it in to the brand.
Wow. I happen to know Arthur Germain, great guy. He's very big on storytelling. So were you actually ever a chef?
Yes, I cooked in various restaurants in my 20s and even in my teens and college. Cooking was a huge part of my life. I was cooking when I was a kid also. My grandma taught me how to cook. It skipped my mom's generation. She didn't know how to cook very well.
Gotcha.
But I went on to work in a lot of different restaurants doing pizza chef, line cook, a lot of different Italian restaurants. I love cooking Italian food. It's one of my favorites.
I love eating Italian food.
I think there's not many people that don't love eating.
Absolutely. Yeah. The closest I came to ever being anything related to cooking as a job was my first job was I grew up in Chicago, and I don't know if you've ever had a Chicago hot dog, but they're very different than most other. They have onions and relish and pickles and hot peppers and tomatoes, and it's like a full meal. It's absolutely amazing. And I worked at a hot dog stand. They're just like we have pizza places everywhere here in New York, hot dog places everywhere in Chicago. And that was one of my favorite jobs. It was so much because I loved eating them so much. I was pretty much eating up my entire salary, but that's another story. So I want to talk about branding with you because everybody needs a brand. Every company needs a brand. How do you define what is a brand? How do we define branding, and what is a brand framework?
Well, Jeff, a brand is essentially a bet. It's a wager. It's a wager that a specific group of people are going to respond to a company or a person's way of presenting themselves when trying to get them to think about a specific problem and accompanying solution. As an example, right? Well, let me answer the other question, right? So a brand framework is really a way for a brand to create strategy and identity and actually present themselves out in the world, right? So there are personal brands and there are corporate brands. Most of the time, I'm really dealing with a lot of corporate brands where there's product or service to be sold rather than a personal brand, which is getting to know the person behind, the keyboard and the camera. So a framework just allows a brand to create the parts of the brand that need to stay consistent and to see if that wager or that bet plays out, right?
Gotcha. Okay. So are we talking about, say, Apple? Apple, I'm making this up because I don't know, but to me, their brand seems to be sexy, cool, cutting edge. Am I right? Or is that what we're talking about here?
There is no wrong with branding. So here's the thing, right? A brand is what people think about a company. It's so when people think of Apple, right? If you're talking to farmers in, rural America or other countries, and you say the word Apple, they're not necessarily thinking of the tech company. First of all, they might be thinking of literally the fruit. But if you're talking to people in metropolitan areas, and if you're talking to people in society where they are pretty well off and there's a lot of money going around, then yes, people are immediately thinking of that company and their brand. And what they're thinking about is their experience with that brand. They're thinking about a phone that they have bought or maybe that they refuse to buy. There's a lot of people out there that are very anti-Apple, right? Apple has crafted a brand so specific and targeted and well done that the people who are not the target market pride themselves on not being the target market, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Most companies just wouldn't do it, right? But yeah, so Apple is all about making you think about, cool, cutting edge, top of the line tech when you need to think about it, not when you're eating your cereal or when you're brushing your teeth.
Yeah, I don't think about my iPhone when I'm brushing my teeth, but I
Exactly.
mean, I still remember when the first iPod came out. It was like, oh my God, I can have all my music in a little thing that I can carry around with me. And then, of course, when the iPhone came out, it was like, it's a game changer. So that's the way I think of Apple. I know there's a lot of people who don't like Apple, but I'm a fan. It makes my life easier. What's one brand that perhaps you think is maybe wildly overrated? The world loves it, but you think, come on.
Well, so I was thinking about this question a lot, and I think that this question is inherently wrong because there's no such thing as overrated brands, right? So as a brand architect, right, when I create a brand for a client, we choose a specific market and audience, and we specifically make everything to target that audience, message, visuals, the presence, everything, the works just for that audience, which means all the other people, they're not the target. And we don't care what they think. It doesn't matter what they think. So a lot of them might think it's overrated, it's underrated. It doesn't matter because it only matters what the target audience thinks. And the target audience, if your target audience thinks your company is overrated or a brand is overrated, then you're not communicating your message properly.
Hmm.
Having said that, I think there are a lot of brands that are underrated. And one of the biggest ones I will tell you is Kit Kat. I just
Kit Kat
saw
like the
a
candy?
really, really interesting, yeah, Kit Kat, the candy bar. It was bought out by a giant conglomerate and they didn't change anything about it. And the reason is because Kit Kat has such a solid brand strategy and execution, you can't improve it. You literally can't improve it. All they do is just come up with new flavors of Kit Kat, and they're all winners. They don't change their jingle. They don't change their look. They don't change their packaging, their logo, their color. None of that. None of it changes because they know they have a winner. And what they do, the only way to win with a winner is just to keep doing what they're doing.
Mm.
They're very consistent, even through all the changes in society over the last 75 years. Kit Kat barely has changed. It's a very underrated brand.
I love those white chocolate Kit Kats. I can tell you that. Speaking of candy, didn't Reese's peanut butter cups recently change their formula? Also get bought out, change their formula, and now they're changing it back. Am I correct on that?
I think a lot of food companies are in the process of responding to consumers upset about food changes. So yes, over the last, like, I think maybe 5 years, 10 years, a lot of food companies have downsized, have, made their products generally more generic and not as flavorful in the name of profits. And we as the consumers suffer from that. We don't win anything. Even though we're not saving any money because they're charging the same money, if not more, but we're getting a lot less. And so we end up losing in the long run. I don't know if any of the companies are changing back. I haven't read about that or heard about that, but I sure hope they all start doing it, because I think what Pepsi was just in the news. They lost billions of dollars because they're charging $7 for a Dorito bag,
I
and
saw that.
it's just not going over well. And so that's a brand decision they made, and now the audience, the consumers, are making their own brand decision, and they're saying no.
Is pricing a brand decision, or is that a marketing decision or a sales decision?
Well, it's definitely everything is a brand decision, Jeff. Everything is a brand decision because the brand is the whole company, right? It's how it all operates. It's how it addresses its customers. It's the experience that it gives customers. So when you change pricing, does that affect your customer's experience?
Sure.
Absolutely, it does. And is that a brand decision? I think it is. And is the person making the decision aware that it's a brand decision? In this case, almost definitely not. But they need to be, right? They say every job is a sales job. I agree with that. But behind that, it's because everything revolves around the brand, because the experience, the impression is what matters.
Gotcha. We hear a lot about best practices in sales, best practices in marketing. Is there a branding best practice that most people think this is a best practice, but you think is maybe nonsense?
There is big buy-in to brand archetypes. People who are not in branding, I think, generally don't hear about it or deal with it. But once, business owners, salespeople start, creating content for their brand, and they're worried about how their brand sounds, then they might stumble on brand archetypes and, personas. I don't necessarily believe that it's as helpful. I've used them in the past, and I've not used them in the past. And to be honest, there's been no difference in my process or in the results. So I'm not sure if it's something that's really very helpful. But there's definitely people that will make the case that it's incredibly helpful. I just think that it's something that can be skipped without necessarily losing a lot. So I don't want to, trash talk anything that someone has spent a lot of time crafting and creating, basing it on psychology. But I just don't think that it matters as much as they may make it seem.
Gotcha. Now, I know you work mostly with corporate brands, but how important is it for people to have a personal brand? Especially, I talk to salespeople. So how important is it for a salesperson to develop a personal brand? And if you feel it's important, how would they go about doing that?
Well, Jeff, I think it's of the utmost importance, especially as more and more people are on social media and getting their news and information from social media. And there are there's more competition for attention, right? A personal brand helps a salesperson stand out amongst all the other calls that a person is getting, all the other pitches a person is getting, because they're not hiding behind a facade, right? So when I have this hat on, right, I have cooked before. I know how to talk about food. I specifically act a certain way, and I talk about certain things when I am the brand chef versus when I am Asaf at home or with family, friends, things like that. So a personal brand, essentially, it's a way for a representative, sales representative, a business owner to put themselves kind of like apart from the company that they work for or own, right? As an expert in a specific subject matter. So if you don't consider yourself an expert in something, and if you don't consider yourself like, if you are an engineer or if you are a administrative assistant, do you need a personal brand? Probably not. It's probably not going to help you out very much. But a salesperson understands that people buy from people and not from brands. Right? They might like a brand and trust a brand. But if I call up Nike to buy a pair of shoes, which obviously no one ever does anymore, but if I were to do that and I were to get a really rude salesperson on the phone, guess what brand I'm never buying again? It's going to be that, because that bad brand experience trumps anything else that happened before then.
Mm.
And so a salesperson would be very important to have a personal brand. How I would start it is I would think about what are 2 to 3 things that are really important to you that you can talk about in depth, and that you want to talk about in depth. It doesn't need to be everything in your life, right? It should be very focused, but you also need to bring in life experience, past and current, into the content you put out there when you have a personal brand. So when you have a personal brand, you're definitely putting out content so people can learn about you and get to know you and start trusting and liking you, so that when you do decide to start pitching and you do decide to start going after prospects and leads and converting them, there's something else that's telling your story before you even get into that call. And it is at your control. You're controlling what people are hearing about your story. So it's not just random.
We could almost say that this shirt I'm wearing is part of my personal brand. I've been doing this broadcast. I think I'm just about to go into my 5th year. There's a couple of hundred of them. And I wear, well, it's not this shirt, but I have like 5 of this shirt. So I wear the same thing every single time. I guess we could say that's part of my personal brand. And I actually didn't do it to create a brand, but the reason I started wearing the shirt regularly is because previous to COVID, I would, do corporate training and I'd be in a suit and tie because that's what you did. And COVID kind of changed that. And I was thinking, as much as Steve Jobs was a maniac, he was also a genius. And I loved that he always wore jeans, sneakers, and a black mock turtleneck. I was like, man, I wish I could do my job in that. And then I said to myself, why can't I? Why don't I just start showing up in this? And then corporations will expect it. And I don't put on suits and ties anymore. I refuse to. I guess if somebody said, hey, Jeff, we've got $40,000 for you. Come do an hour speech. And we want you to wear a suit and tie. I think I'm enough of a whore, Asaf, that I would put on a suit and tie, but I wouldn't be thrilled. Well, actually, I would be thrilled to get a $40,000 check for an hour speech. But I think you get what I'm saying. So am I right? Is that part of my personal brand, even what I'm wearing?
100% right. And it was a branding decision from the get-go. You just didn't look at it that way, but 100% it was a branding decision. You decided that you want people to see you as you really are. You didn't want to hide behind a suit and tie because you don't feel comfortable. That's not you. You
never felt comfortable in a suit and tie. Never.
Right. I dress like this because I actually really feel comfortable like this. There's a t-shirt under here. It's comfortable. I get to breathe, but I also want to look professional because I understand that when people are getting advice about a brand or branding, right, it's for people that understand and that value it in businesses that make 5, 10, 15, $20 million a year, right? They're not trying to get that advice from someone sitting in their living room, in pajamas, right? There's a certain level of professionalism that comes along with the expectations. And my idea is I don't want to wear a collared shirt with my logo on it. I don't want to wear a suit jacket with my logo on it. I wanted to wear my logo on something that really stood out.
It does.
So that's exactly where the chef's hat came from. It's Arthur's idea. He said, you should wear a hat. I said, what do you mean? And we discussed it a little bit, and chef's hat came out, and a couple of months later I branded it, and it was one of the best things I've ever done.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. And I'll admit, I do wear a sport jacket when I go on a sales call. And if they want me to, I'll wear a sport jacket when I'm doing training. But man, I want to be comfortable. And I guess over the years, I've created so that I can be part of my brand is that I can be comfortable when I'm doing my work. If a corporation, because I know you mostly work with corporate branding, if a corporation gave you a blank slate today, what's the first thing you would do to build a powerful brand?
The first thing I would do is I would ask them who their top 3 customers are and I would interview those customers in depth. That's the absolute first thing I would do, because it's the last thing I'm going to do is create something. The first thing I'm going to do is understand the problem. You can't create a strategy, you can't have a good bet unless you understand the problem, right? You don't go into a casino and go to a game you've never played before and bet $20,000 and ask, okay, how do I play? No one would do that. That's stupid. So going to a company and saying, all right, I'm going to create your brand. Here it is. It's never going to hit with anyone. It's not going to hit with leadership. There's going to be no buy-in, which means there's going to be no implementation and no pride. And it's definitely not going to hit with customers because I'm just guessing and I don't know their customers. And I'm 99% likely to guess wrong.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the fact that I believe, and I think you do too, your customers are your best source of business intelligence. We can think whatever we want, but it really doesn't matter because it's the customer that ends up paying us for our product or our service. And I learned this when I started my company 20 years ago. I hired a marketing guy to work with me. And he said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go interview some of your clients. I'm like, why interviewing my clients? I can tell you everything you need to know. He goes, you don't know everything. You know what you think you know, but what you don't know is why your customers use you. I said, no, they use me for training. They want their sales to go up. He goes, I will bet you that if I ask your customers what they like about working with you, yes, sales going up might be something they'll tell me, but there's other stuff. And I promise you that's true. And sure enough, he went around with a video camera and interviewed a bunch of my clients, and it was eye-opening. Here's a perfect example. That was not from him doing this, but years ago, about 6-7 years ago, I was working with a company and I did an 18-month program with them. And at the end of the 18 months, I was sitting with the entire sales management team, like 7 sales managers, the VP and the SVP of sales. And I'm, how did it go? Is there anything I could have done better? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. And one of the questions I always like to ask is, what do you like best about the engagement that we just did? And to a person, 7 sales managers, a VP of sales, and a sales vice president, to a person, they all said, Jeff, here's what we like best. Our salespeople now sound more confident. They feel more confident. Now, 6 years ago, I'd already been doing this for 15 years, and it never once occurred to me that one of the things that I do is I give salespeople confidence. Once they said that to me, I'm like, oh yeah. And you can bet now that it's part of every conversation I have. Well, one of the things my clients like best about working with me is when I'm done, their salespeople have more confidence. In fact, I named my most recent program the Sales Confidence Lab, simply because my customers told me that's what I'm giving them. So love that, man. Love that.
What you're clarifying the message so that when people come to you, guess what they don't have? Confidence. And guess what they want? Confidence. And guess what they know you can give people? Confidence, just because you use the word everywhere.
It's right in my title here. I'm the sales confidence architect, and I would call myself the sales confidence coach, except a good friend of mine already has that title, and I would not rip him off that way. I actually went to him when I came up with this idea. I said, hey, are you still using that sales confidence title? He goes, yeah. I said, oh, damn it, I wanted to do it. He goes, well, you can use it too. I'm like, thank you. That's very kind. I'm not stealing your brand, man. That's just not the right thing to do. Well, architect is not as good as coach, but it still drives the point home. So yes, that's the brand I'm creating.
You touched upon a really great point there, and I know it's not one of your questions, but when any of your audience members decide to go and start their own personal brand, don't copy other people. Please, please don't copy other people, because you aren't going to gain anything at all. You're going to get followers that are following you for the wrong reasons. And then once they realize you're not that person, they'll unfollow you. And then that metric meant nothing. I suggest people take that same approach that we were just talking about. Interview your own top customers and ask them, what is it about me that made you buy from me? What is it about me that makes you continue doing business with me?
Yeah.
And one of the best questions I give to people is, what almost made you not hire me?
Huh. Never thought of that one.
It's a good one.
What almost made you not hire me?
It gives you some of the red flags that you are completely missing out on that are possibly costing you opportunities.
Brilliant. Love that. Wow. I'm going to watch this again and write that down later on. I'm not going to take the time right now. Am I correct? Clarity is crucial in branding. That's right. Yes. So how important is niche clarity? And if it is important, how do you find the right one? My feeling is you can be a generalist, but I think it's better typically to niche down, to find what's that market that really loves me instead of trying to appeal to everybody. The truth is I can train almost any type of sales organization, professional salespeople, accidental salespeople, other than retail. I don't work with Macy's or Bloomingdale's or companies like that. But if your people speak English, I can train them if they're selling B2B or B2C, except I focus on, at least right now for the last 6 months and going forward, on what I call the accidental salesperson, which is somebody who I'm a professional salesperson for 50 years. I went into sales to sell, but like a coach or a consultant did not go into to be coaching or be consulting because they wanted to sell, but they have to. So that's a niche that I've narrowed it down to instead of everybody, coaches really. So how important is niche clarity in branding?
So clarity is literally the name of the game, right? The more clear you are on 3 questions, right, then your business is doing good. And that's, who are you? Who do you serve? And why should they care? Because if you can't answer those 3 questions, if everyone in your organization can't answer those 3 questions, then there's a lot of confusion that's going to cause a lot of mistakes. The wrong people are going to be onboarded. The wrong people are going to be in the wrong jobs. The wrong customers are going to be brought on with the wrong expectations. So clarity helps avoid all those problems and helps create long-term customer long-term customer loyalty. If a customer feels like their purchase decision helped them and they feel confident in that decision, there's no reason for them to switch, right? There's no reason for them to start looking for other providers. They're happy, they're good. They've solved that problem and possibly solve more depending on who they found as the solution. But with niche in branding, it's a double-edged sword. You can't be a generalist because no one will feel like you're talking to them. So the old adage is, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to nobody. If a person is reading a piece of content, whether it's listening to a video or reading a written piece of content, if it's not directed at them and they don't feel that connection, they're swiping up. They're not finishing that content. They're just swiping up, right? Everyone is looking for relevancy. So if you can niche down enough where you can get relevancy to your audience with your content, but there's, over the long term, there's enough of those people to support a business, then that's fine. But if you niche down too much and now you're so specific, right? So if you were to say, you're not the sales confidence architect, you're the, Suffolk County Nursing Association sales confidence architect, I would say, Jeff, that's probably a little too specific. You're probably only looking at a lifetime of a couple of thousand possible customers, and that's likely not going to work out for you in the long run. So you don't want to narrow it too much, although most people don't get anywhere near that narrow. Most people stop way above that and think they've gone too narrow. And it's just not the case. You want to be specific so people know that they are specifically the right person.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about, as long as you're happy, people, if you create a brand, people like the brand, they tend not to switch. I wore Nikes probably for 30 years, just one after another. Just whenever I needed sneakers, it's okay, let me go buy my next pair of Nikes. Yep. And one time I had my son with me at the Roosevelt Field Mall. As a matter of fact, being on Long Island, you probably know where that is. And we're walking around and I said, I need a new pair of Nikes. Let's go into whatever the store was. I don't remember which one it was. I can see the picture, but whatever. And he goes, why are you buying Nikes? I said, I always buy Nikes. I love Nikes. I like the way they look. I like the way they feel. He goes, there's something new that came out that you should try. I'm like, what is it? He goes, Adidas Ultra Boost. I said, no, I'm a Nike guy. He goes, Dad, just try them on. I tried them on, and 30 years of loyalty went out the window immediately because they're like, oh my God, I'm walking on pillows and I now have like 7 pairs of Adidas Ultra Boost. Although I have to admit, I also started buying the Skechers slip-ins because I'm old, and I got to spell this because he's right behind me. For WALKing the DOG, I like to just slip in without having to bend down and put them on. But man, I
tell you why that
didn't consider switching to another brand until my son said, hey, try these on.
Well, I'll tell you why that happened. Because even though, and how old is your son?
Well, he'll be 24 in August, but at that time he was probably 10. He was probably 14 or something like that.
14, right? So even though you had been buying Nikes for 20 years at that point, longer than your son has been alive, you trust your son way more than you trust Nike. And when your son said, just try them, you didn't make a purchasing decision. You made a trust-based decision. And you said, yeah, of course I trust my son. I'm going to try them because I trust my son.
Actually, I did not say that. I was humoring him. I was like, okay, young man, you want me to try them on? I'll try them on. And in my head, I'm going, there's no way I'm buying another brand. I'm a Nike guy.
But hold on. If the salesperson at the store told you that, you wouldn't have tried them on. No matter what.
Probably not. He would have to be way more convincing than my son was.
That's right. Your son didn't need to be convincing. He has built-in trust.
Usually. He's not perfect. Yes.
Well, when it came to that situation, yeah.
Actually, I take it back. I trust him implicitly. He's turned out to be a brilliant young man and way smarter than his father, thank goodness.
That's because of his father.
So what makes people trust a brand?
Very simple, actually. There's only 2 factors to building trust, and that is empathy and authority. So,
sorry, what was the second one?
Oh, it's empathy and authority.
Authority. Okay, got it.
So empathy works, right? You call up a prospect, or you meet a prospect and they're starting to tell you about their problem. And you say, okay, I understand your problem. And so if you can actually get them to feel that you understand their problem, then they're kind of open to hiring you for said problem, right? The other half that they need to figure out is, can you solve this problem? So authority in a space shows, not only do I understand this problem, I know how to fix this problem. Here's my results. Here's my process. Here's my reviews from people who have already gone through it. Take all this stuff, build up your trust. I know what I'm doing.
Huh. So this sales trainer is going to help you increase your sales. These shoes are going to help you run faster. It's like that.
It's just like that. Just being clear about the problem, the solution, and why they should care.
So when I think of branding, I think it's the branding's purpose is to create an image or a feeling about a company or a person or a product or service to help hopefully get them interested enough to have a conversation or go into a store or something like that to investigate the product. How should branding support the sales process? Is it just awareness or is there more?
Well, branding, I think it's all about telling the story before the salesperson even gets on the call, right? So one of the things that happens in the B2B sales process is a person will hear about a brand, right? They have a problem in mind that they need or want to solve, and they're starting to try to find solutions, right? They're looking and they're vetting and they're, doing their research way before they jump on anybody's sales call. And if they do jump on a sales call before that happens, you've probably been there. They're like a deer in headlights. They have absolutely no idea how to answer any questions. They don't understand the impact of the problem. And it's just way too early in the process to get on a sales call. They're just not ready to make anything remotely near a buying decision. So that buying decision, it takes time and it takes trust to get to that buying decision. The brand helps build that trust before you as the salesperson even opens up your mouth. Because if the story is being told ahead of time, it should generate some questions, maybe it should generate interest, but it should provide information that usually the salesperson would have to provide on a call, to tell the story of the brand, to, give a lot of background information, but as a professional salesperson, a good sales call is me shutting up and asking questions and letting the other person talk. It's a discovery, right? I need to discover the problem you're having so that I can make the judgment of whether I can help you.
And am I right? Branding's job is to make you feel, right? It's to make you feel something. Like I think that now
branding works off of emotion. Yes, it
Yeah.
uses emotion to connect to people.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a TV commercial. I can't remember. Wasn't Verizon? Maybe it was AT&T. But was it reach out and touch someone and people connecting on the phone and having these emotional moments? Do you remember? Years ago.
What brand it was. I remember the line very clearly.
Yeah, and I can actually see people on the phone. The mother in the kitchen talking to her son and crying. And
I think MCI.
MCI,
Yeah.
maybe.
I think it was MCI.
I guess their branding wasn't that great, or my memory wasn't. But at the time, I remember. Yeah, it's little things like that. And is branding always big? I mean, what's one small branding tweak that could immediately increase a company's or a person's brand?
One branding tweak is twofold. Sorry, I have to make it two. So number one, it's choosing your specific lane and staying in that specific lane. So consistency and specificity, right? So being clear on the things that you're talking about or the things that you're creating content about, and consistently making content about that. If you're making content about all these different things, no one will know what you're talking about and what to rely on you to learn about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I'm very consistent on LinkedIn, which is where my prospects are hanging out. Everybody's on LinkedIn. I'm less consistent on Facebook. I'm in both places, and I love both for different reasons. But besides doing what I do, I'm also a stand-up comedian. I'm a father. I have a dog that I love. And on Facebook, on LinkedIn, I'm only posting business stuff. I post every day content that I believe that coaches can use to help them do their job better. Because I believe that when you give generously, occasionally people are going to reach out to you and go, hey, I like your stuff. I'd like to talk to you about doing business. But on Facebook, I'm posting stuff about sales. I'm also posting stuff about my comedy. I'm posting stuff about my dog. So am I diluting my brand there? Am I just confusing people, or is it okay to do that?
Here's what I would suggest to do for you specifically. On Facebook, bring it in a little bit. So bring in real life experiences that you can somehow relate story-wise, right, to yourself as a professional sales coach, right? Maybe it's something you learned at a pizzeria while you were eating with your son, right? It could just be talking about specific moments, right, that have to do with your personal life. But I would wholeheartedly suggest bring that into LinkedIn too. I don't think that you should exclude it from LinkedIn, because I think people on LinkedIn that start to know you as the sales confidence architect, peeling some layers back and showing people the person behind this is very, very powerful, because you're not pushing some big company brand, right? You're pushing a business you own and operate.
Right.
And so that's a big difference. When it's an owner operator creating a personal brand, that's really, really powerful.
It's brilliant that you just said that, because what I find is, I post content 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day, and I'm just trying to, here's information that's going to help you do your job better. And again, my hope is that occasionally people are going to reach out and say, I want to work with you. But the posts that get the most engagement are when I'm pissed off about something. Like I had one the other day. What had happened?
When you're showing your humanity.
Yes, exactly right. One thing I hate is pitch slapping. So, somebody connects with you on LinkedIn and immediately they're pitching you. And when I post about that, tons and tons of people engage.
Right.
Here's another one. I get invited onto a lot of podcasts. I like doing podcasts just like you're doing right now, because it's a great to get the word out and get a little more exposure and helps create to further your brand. And lately, especially, and by the way, somebody recommended that I do this, which I would never do, but I'd say 3 times in the last week, I've done pre-interviews with people, and they are pre-interviewing me for a podcast, but it's really a sales call. They have a podcast. I talked to a guy the other day, and about 10 minutes into this thing, I said, is this a sales call or a pre-interview? He goes, it's a pre-interview. I said, I got to tell you something. It feels like a sales call, because he was telling me that besides doing podcasts, he also does marketing and blah, 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 blah. And I said, it feels like a sales call. He goes, it's not. But for what I just told you, it's $700 a month. I said, you know what? I don't want to be on your podcast. Thank you very much. And I posted about that. I didn't post about that specific guy. I actually wrote the post before I talked to that guy. But those are the posts that tend to get the most engagement, where I'm like, don't do this. Have integrity. This is so.
I think, if I may, I think they had the right intention and the wrong implementation. I think that should have been a pre-podcast email. An email that says, hey, here's something that you expect. Like you sent me an email. Hey, here's what to expect. That was really helpful. But then at the bottom of the email, it'll be like, hey, by the way, if you're interested, our company also provides blah, 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 blah. And at that point, you wouldn't feel like, hey, I'm not feeling like I'm being sold to, but hey, I understand that they offer this. And it might have rubbed you a little bit better than that sales call /
Yeah. And even better for me, I guess I wouldn't mind that little thing in an email, but better for me is at the end of the interview, say, by the way, Jeff, if you're interested, we do this. If you ever want to talk about that, that'd be great. But it just rubbed me the wrong way.
Up front. It's that they did it up front. And so they didn't care about the experience you're going to have with them.
It's like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about being on my podcast. By the way, let me tell you about my marketing.
Yeah. Bad experience. Yeah, you should consult them on their sales experience, their sales process.
Well, I disconnected the call. I said, you know what? I don't want to be on your podcast. Good luck to you, though. Boom.
There's a brand decision for you. Saying no, the power of no is really important.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of no. I love no. I love yes better, but I love no. And that's the thing that so many salespeople don't understand, that yes is great and no is great. Everything else sucks. And that's a technical sales training word. It sucks.
Yeah.
I make it very easy for people to say yes to me. I make it just as easy for people to say no to me. And I'm good with both. I will admit I like yes better than no, but I love them both. I hate everything. I hate I got to think it over. I hate I got to take it to the committee. I got to talk to my partner. And speaking about think it over, how do you align your messaging in your branding so that prospects don't say, I need to think about it? Is there some way to do that?
I think it's very important in messaging, when you're crafting messaging for your brand, to use what we call voice of customer. So look at testimonials, reviews, interviews of clients, right? And understand the language they use to describe the problem, to describe the solution, to describe the experience, to describe the results, everything. You want to use their language. You don't want to use language you're making up. You don't want to use AI. Please don't use AI to write stuff for your business, because AI is specifically created to give you the average answer. And when you're branding, the whole point is to not be average. So please do not use AI to write for your brand. Brainstorm all day long, but finished writing pieces, please put your own human spin on it. As Jeff, you said, as soon as you showed your humanity, boom, people show up.
Gotcha. Actually, I think you answered my next question, which was how do you stand out when everybody sounds the same on LinkedIn? So it's putting your personality into.
That's a big thing of this. Being authentic, being consistent and clear, and without a doubt is not relying on AI. People don't want to interact with AI. They want to interact with people.
Which is why I keep telling people, and I get asked 5 times a day, every day, Jeff, is AI going to kill sales? Should I be looking for another job? Well, I think eventually it might, but not right now. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, because people still do business with people. And you said it before. I'd say to a company like Apple or Nike, to a certain extent, it doesn't matter the people. People buy Nike because of Nike, although you could argue Michael Jordan helped create that brand and Steve Jobs helped create Apple.
Yep.
But for the most part, people do business with people. It's like I used to work for a very famous sales trainer in this very famous sales training company before I opened up my own. His name opened up doors. But when I went in, people weren't doing business with this guy. They were doing business with Jeff, who was able to deliver that guy's training for them. it didn't matter about that guy. So it always does come down, as far as I'm concerned, to in sales at least, to the relationship you build and the value you bring to the table, and both are crucial.
I saw a ad or a post, I think yesterday, on LinkedIn, and it was a software company showing off a AI sales call setter, right? An appointment setter. And then now that you're talking, is AI going to replace sales? And look at how they're doing it, right? They have to fake being human in order to get the sale. So we're using machines to fake being human so that we don't be human on the call.
Yeah, I actually had a cold call from a company. The guy said something, and I answered, and then his voice changed just slightly, and it turned out they were using AI to make that initial call, so the guy isn't wasting his time. He only got on once he heard that I was talking, and I was like, oh, that's freaking brilliant. I mean, he actually got me. I didn't realize I noticed only a tiny difference when it was just enough to go, what? But it wasn't enough to go, something's wrong here.
Right.
And I actually brought this guy into a company that I'm working with, because not only does it dial the phone for you and you record your voice, and it starts the conversation, but it also as you're talking, it brings up their LinkedIn profile, some main points from their LinkedIn profile, so you have things to talk to about the person. That's a valuable use of AI and machines.
Yeah, like assisting and giving you the context and the information that you're going to need right then and there, so that you can sound confident, so that you can sound competent, and so that you can actually look up the company and say something relevant to them, like, oh, I see you're doing a great job with Acme Inc. I love, the new movie that's coming out with Wile E. Coyote.
Oh, you mentioned my guy. I love Wile E. Coyote. Come on.
There's literally a movie coming out.
Wile E. Coyote
versus Acme. Got to check it out. It just
okay, for those of you who are too young, we're talking about a cartoon when I was a kid called The Roadrunner, and Wile E. Coyote was his nemesis. It was great.
Loved it.
Absolutely one of my favorite cartoons when I was a kid. I mean, today I love Rick and Morty. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
I have not gotten into that. I've heard it's really, really good.
It's insane, just insane. You mentioned consistency in branding, and I think everybody would agree that's crucial. Is consistency more important than creativity? Are they equally important? Is one more important than the other?
I think consistency is more important than creativity. Creativity is a way to, stop the scroll, to interrupt, right? The pattern interrupt. That's where creativity comes in. It's just to make it stand out so the person starts paying attention. But what gets a person to continue paying attention and eventually make that buying decision, it's not creativity, it's consistency. Mm-hmm. That brand consistently showing up where that person is on their platforms, even in ads, wherever they are, that's still consistent. Or they are, there's a brand that may sponsor pickleball tournaments, and you might be a pickleball fan, and you might be considering this brand. Now you see them at all these different pickleball events and places, and you're like, yo, they really like pickleball. I like that. I want to do business with them because they are supporting something I like.
And they're consistent.
I
get it. Is it better to be polarizing or widely liked? And before you answer, I'm going to tell you why I asked that question. There's a commercial I hear constantly. Every time I hear it, I want to punch the radio. I want to kill the guy who's doing the announcing, except I remember the guy's name and I remember the brand every single time. And the company is called Ethos, and they sell life insurance. And in this commercial, the guy has a really weird speech pattern. Excuse me. I forget his first name, but my name is Jeff Slater, blah, blah, blah. My father died at 63, had a stroke. And at the end of the commercial, he talks about life insurance is important. Everybody's going to die. You're going to die. And every time I'm like, dude, I'm going to be 71 next week. Don't tell me I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. Except, you know what? I remember the guy's name and I remember Ethos. So I hate that I remember it because it's so annoying and I hear it constantly. So is that a good, I guess it is a good thing to be polarizing.
Well, let me ask a question to help you answer that question. Would you consider doing business with Ethos?
No, I hate that guy because I hate that commercial desperately. Hate it, hate it. Oh, have you ever heard it? You know what I'm talking about?
I have.
Look it up. Oh,
I will look it up.
oh, it's so annoying. And just, my dad died, 63, had a stroke. It's even just the way he's speaking annoys the crap out of me. But I believe it's being done on purpose because, look, I do remember it.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that brilliant advertising?
Yes, because if they change their spokesperson later and maybe aren't so annoying, maybe they come up with a solution that you're like, oh, that looks really good. I know this company, even though that guy was so annoying, I know this company, or I feel like I know this company.
They've screwed themselves with me. I don't care how many other commercials I would. Well, I already have life insurance, but that's besides the point. But yeah, no, for me, they've screwed themselves. So they've polarized me to the point where there ain't no way they're getting my business.
Polarizing is the way to go. As negative as it may sound, widely liked is misleading. Look at influencers, for example. They're widely liked and they're widely followed. How many of them can actually sell products and move products? There's not that many.
If your name is Kardashian, I guess you can,
but they had celebrity, true celebrities, right? People that actually have celebrity status. Yeah, right. They can definitely move products, but even they struggle, right? That's just because Ryan Reynolds decides to release something doesn't mean it's going to sell. He has to put a lot of effort. He has to work with the marketing department, and there's definitely strategy built into it. It doesn't just randomly happen, but
he's created a brand. He's likable. He's funny. He's good looking. But I would listen to anything Ryan Reynolds says, including I've tried his tequila or gin, is it? Well, whatever it is. But he's got that brand where I just like Ryan Reynolds. In fact, I just saw the movie Project Hail Mary.
Oh, I heard it was really good.
It's a great movie. Great. The book was way better. Way better. But an excellent movie. And when I saw the commercials, I'm like, not Jake Gyllenhaal. Oh, that should have been Ryan Reynolds. He would have been better at it. And Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job, by the way. I believe he actually produced the movie. So he did a great job. But in my head, Ryan Reynolds has created such a strong brand in my mind that I want Ryan Reynolds in that one. Actually, I want Ryan. It's like George Clooney. They're funny and they're handsome to the point where it's sickening. I'm like, no human really should be that good looking. But they're also. It's like I don't hate them for being superstar gorgeous people because they're so likable. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. I think Brad Pitt is like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Love Brad Pitt.
I love his movies.
I want to be Brad Pitt.
Not the best actor in the world, definitely not. But I love almost everything that he's in.
Actually, he's turned into a really good actor. You know who else? Tom Cruise. If you watch his first movie, he was okay. He was a kid. He was okay. He's turned into just a powerhouse. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but yeah, I could talk about stars all day, and I love movies.
But yeah, they definitely are all cultivating personal brands, and a lot of them are cultivating personal brands and utilizing them to product lines. I mean, 30 years ago, if a celebrity said, "Oh, I'm launching a tequila," they'd be like, "Why?"
Yeah,
that makes no sense.
When he has a tequila, I've tried it.
Now it's expected. We expect celebrities to start offering product lines.
They're not making enough money. Okay. Go there. What should somebody audit on their website or their LinkedIn profile today about their brand? What's something they can take a look at that might make a difference for them?
Their website and LinkedIn profile are one and the same concept, just different executions, right? It's a place where people can learn about you in relation to their problem. So when you want to fix your profile or your website, look at it from the customer's or prospect's point of view. Why are they here? What do they need to know in order to move on to the next step? What is the next step? How do they know it's the next step? Make it really effing clear for them that this is the only next step. And if you are this and this and this, then you want to take this next step, both on your profile and on your website.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the customer's point of view again, because it's so freaking important. That same marketing guy who went around to my clients and interviewed them. He also designed my logo and my business cards when I first started my business and all that stuff. And it was fascinating for me because he sent me I think it's called a color sheet with like 100 different colors on it, and said, pick the 3 that you like the best. And he sent me a bunch of fonts, and he said, pick the one that you like the best here. And I picked something that looks like a sunset, red, orange, yellow, like a sunset. Why? I love sunsets and I love sunrises, but that attracted me. And I picked a particular font because it looked right to me. Then we had a meeting. We sat down actually in a diner, and goes, why'd you pick these colors and why'd you pick this font? I said, well, I like sunset. So, that's why I picked those colors. It looks like a sunset to me. And the font really, it's just attractive to me. And then he said something brilliant. He goes, now tell me about your typical prospect. And I describe my typical prospect. Well, it's usually a VP of sales, a president, or a CEO. They're hard charging people. They're running companies. They're looking to increase profitability in sales, and they make quick decisions, and they're powerful people. He goes, and do you think they love sunsets, Jeff? I'm like, oh, I love sunsets, but they might not. And my business cards, my logo, look nothing like what I picked out, because he said to me, it doesn't matter what you like. It matters what your prospects and customers like. You're trying to appeal to them, not to you. And look, I love my business cards, and I love my logo, and I love what he picked out. And he picked out a power color, and it looks very strong. And because I'm dealing with people who are strong, people who make business decisions. So it's the customer's point of view that really counts, not really ours. Wow, I'm looking at the clock. We only have time for like one more question. How's this? If listeners or viewers could remember only one thing from this conversation, what's the one takeaway that you'd want them to have besides they should be using Bach Creative?
Well, the biggest takeaway, Jeff, and I really appreciate you having me on the show, it is that branding is a bet. It's a wager. It's not a plan that is 100% going to go correct just because you made the plan. It's a bet, and it can always go south, but it can always go north.
So you have to constantly be monitoring, adjusting, testing.
It's a living thing, right? You have to constantly be in touch with your customers.
Gotcha. Asaf, before we go, how can people reach you if they're interested in speaking with you, working with you? How can people reach you?
Well, again, thanks so much for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun. You are such a fun person to talk to, and I feel like we could have gone for a long time. My website is bachcreative.com. This is how you spell it. And you can find me.
People can see that if they're watching this, but this will get turned into a podcast, and people will be listening. So please spell it out for people.
Yes, it's a BOCH creative.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Asaf Bochman, ASAF BOCHMAN. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. I don't post every day. I try to post every other day, just to give people time to process the content and to help ensure the quality and stay consistent.
Okay. Do you want to give out a phone number?
Yes, it's 631-618-3111. Text, call, anytime.
Lots of ways to find Asaf, a great guy. And I will end as I always do. Please remember, gang, sales is a game of making things happen. Get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Asaf. Enjoy your wherever you said you were going.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. See you, everybody.